Bright QT. Every student matters.
Hello, dear students. Welcome to another lecture. Today, in this class, we are going to discuss the summary as well as the relevance of chapter number 5 of class 11th Alternative English Nagaland Board, which is The Fly, written by Catherine Mansfield. Now, in the previous lectures, we have discussed the entire chapter at length. We have learned that this chapter is about two men, Mr. Woody Field and the boss. The boss's name has not been disclosed to us throughout the story. The only thing that we know is that old Woody Field, who is now retired and after his heart attack, was not allowed to go anywhere else by his wife and daughters except for his boss's office. The boss, on the other hand, has been described as a man who loved to show off the things that were there in the office. He talked about the carpet, about the bookshelf, about the table, about the electric heating. Old Woody Field wanted to tell something to his boss but could not remember. It was then when the boss was remembered of the very special brand of whiskey that was there in his desk cupboard. He opened the desk cupboard and took out a brand of whiskey, which he very proudly told Woody Field was bought from Windsor Castle, a cellar at the Windsor Castle. Now, Woody Field could not imagine that he was going to drink whiskey because at home his family did not allow him to touch it at all. So the moment Woody Field swallowed the content of his glass, he suddenly remembered what he wanted to tell his boss about. He told his boss that last week his daughters visited Belgium to see the grave of his son Reggie. And when in Belgium, they also saw your son's grave. And this is when the readers got to know that both old Woody Field and the boss's sons were now no more. They died in war as soldiers. The boss did not react to it, but his eyelids quivered, which indicated that he had heard what old Woody Field had said. Woody Field continued by telling him that the place was very well taken care of, that it was very green, there were flowers that grew on the graves, and then he also talked about how his daughters were charged 10 francs for 1 spoon of jam at the hotel. After that, Woody Field left and the boss was left to his own company. He told his office messenger, whose name is Macy, that he would not want to meet anybody for the next half hour. He sat, he covered his face with his hands and he was prepared to cry. He wanted to cry, but somehow he couldn't. He remembered about the time he had spent with his son. He recalled that the only reason why he set up this business was so that his son would be able to take that further. His son would come to his office every day with him and was learning the entire working. He was everybody's favorite. He knew what to say to everyone and anyone. And the favorite word, the phrase that his son said was splendid, happily splendid. So he is simply splendid. So this is what the son would always say, and the father remembered about it, and then he thought that it had been 6 years since he lost his son, but to him it seemed as if it was yesterday. Now, just when he was thinking about it, he saw a fly drop inside the ink pot. The fly was trying to come out of the ink pot but couldn't because of the slippery and wet sides of the ink pot. The author helped the fly come out with the help of his pen. The fly, now on the paper, tried very, very hard to clear its wings, to dry them, and to be able to fly again. It was almost successful when the author dropped another blot of ink on it. The fly took it in a very timid manner. It got scared of what had happened, but somehow the fly tried again. And then came another drop. After the third drop, the author could see the fly still waving its legs, but the energy was now no more. The fly was now reluctant and no more active. The moment the author put the last blot of ink on the fly, he realized that the fly was dead. Now, what is the relevance of this title? Why is this fly and the actions of the fly given so much importance? What and why do you think the boss did what he did with the fly? The entire situation between the boss and the fly showcased the situation at war. The boss here played the role of a sadist who just wants to kill whatever soldier comes across him, no matter what the soldier has done or who the soldier is. And this fly represents a soldier. He was basically thinking about his own son. He thought about the efforts that his son might have made at that time in order to survive, in order to be out of that dangerous situation and be able to walk again. So the rigorous effort of the fly showed the efforts that, according to the boss, his son would have made at war before dying. And the author, the boss, dropping that blot of ink on him to make him weak every time, showcased how the army, the opposite army who must have killed his son, were doing, to make sure that this, the person that they were attacking was dead. So the reference of the fly is in remembrance to the son of the boss, who, according to him, went through the same pain, went through the same struggle, and went through the same trauma that the fly went through. The fear, the suspense, the pain, the efforts, everything indicated what the boss's son might have gone through. And the boss dropping the ink, making the fly feel helpless, were the actions of those sadists, those soldiers who made sure that his son was dead. So this, my dear students, was the story The Fly and the relevance of the title and the connection with the boss. So I hope the story is clear to you now. Before we move ahead, I would like to discuss with you the back exercises of this chapter. So without much ado, let's start discussing the back exercises now. The first question says, what did the wife and the daughters imagine Woodyfield to be doing on his day to the city? So what, according to Woodyfield's wife and daughters, Woodyfield did on Tuesday? According to them, he went to some club where he was made fun of. Why did the boss enjoy being admired by Mr. Woodyfield? So the boss loved being admired by Woodyfield because he was just 5 years older to Woodyfield and he was still strong and was still holding good. On the other hand, Woodyfield had become very weak, very frail, and had become, very much prone to diseases now. Why did Mr. Woodyfield's daughter visit Belgium, and what does Mr. Woodyfield tell the boss about the place? So Woodyfield's daughter visited Belgium to visit the grave of Woodyfield's son Reggie. and Woodyfield told the boss that the place was very broad. There were broad paths on that graveyard, and the place was very well taken care of. There were flowers on the graves. What came upon the boss as a terrible shock? So, to the boss, the remark that Woodyfield made that his daughter saw the boss's son's grave as well came as a terrible shock, because he thought that his son was lying bare and the daughters were looking at the dead son of him buried in that place. How does the boss get momentarily distracted by the fly? So the boss got distracted by the fly when the fly was trying to come out of the ink pot, and the boss started observing the efforts that the fly was making, and we ourselves have read how the smallest details of the fly have been explained so well. Why does the boss say that the fly is plucky? Plucky, as you remember, means brave. So why did the boss call the fly as brave? Because the fly, after being out of that ink pot, very bravely was able to clear its wings and was ready to live again and to fly again. Did Mr. Woodyfield share a different relationship with the share a differential relationship with the boss? What can you say about the relationship between the boss and Woodyfield? So we can simply say that the boss and Woodyfield, despite being, an employer and employee, were actually very much good in terms, because that was the reason why Mr. Woodyfield was allowed only to visit his boss on Tuesdays and nobody else. Moreover, Mr. Woodyfield was offered the best brand of whiskey also by his boss, and they talked about their son. At least Mr. Woodyfield did. So this shows that yes, their relationship was more than just being employer and employee. Okay. What does the incident about the fly tell you about the boss's state of mind? So I have just discussed with you what the boss did to the fly actually told what was going on in the boss's mind. He was trying to think of what a sadist, what a person who would have killed his son did at the same time, when the person would have seen his son recovering, getting better, and trying and making efforts to survive, the person was making it more and more difficult for his son. So this was what was going on in his mind. Do you think the fly represents the boss who's struggling with his own battles? Yes, we can also say that the fly represented the boss who was struggling with his own battles, because the boss, as we have read in the story earlier, every time the word my son was mentioned to him, he could not stop crying bitterly. But that day, no matter how hard he tried, he was just not able to cry. That meant that over a period of time, his efforts have ceased now. He is not left with any emotions. He is not left with any sort of, tears in his eyes now, because these 6 years have made him terrible, and the 6 years of pain has made him just dead from within, and therefore he has nothing to express as feelings. Can the boss come to terms with the inevitability of life and death? Yes, the boss did understand that life and death are inevitable. It is unavoidable. You just cannot imagine when the death might happen to you. This is exactly what happened to his son. This is exactly what happened to the fly. And that is when the boss understood, as I told you, the trauma that his son would have been through at the time when he was probably trying to survive, was trying to fight and come out of the danger that he was in, but could not. Then we have appreciating the text. There are a few lines from the text which are given to you. He pointed to the bright red carpet with a pattern of large white rings. The second line is the horrible danger was over. It had escaped. It was ready for life again. It over here in the second stanza refers to the fly. So in the first line, the bright red carpet symbolizes the power of the boss. He was ambitious, he was confident, and he loved to show off the possessions that he had. But in the second line, he described the state of mind of a young soldier, as I told you, who was preparing for a war. Nobody knows what they went through. Nobody knows whether they would be able to return back home or not. So this is what the story, these two lines of the story represent. Okay, then we'll discuss the language practice in this chapter because the words that they have are taken from your text only. So choose the correct explanation according to the context of the chapter. Still at the helm means to command or to direct somebody. The boss was still working. He was still in a position to work as a boss. Snug means very warm and comfortable. Done up lately means something which was renovated or repaired recently. He had not the least idea means he had no idea at all of anything. Learning the ropes means to understand how something is done. The son was learning the ropes at his office. He was trying to understand how the things were done. Look sharp was again a way of telling someone to hurry. That was to look sharp. Over and done with means completely finished and don't have to think about it anymore. So with this, my dear students, we come to the end of chapter 5, class 11th, alternative English, Nagaland board. The entire chapter has been explained to you. The back exercises are discussed with you at length. So I hope the chapter is clear. So I shall pause here and will see you all in the next lecture.